So this was Peter taking black and Mike taking white. So ucdavis is black, Bobsyth is white. Let's take a look. Everything looks good so far. I would say this D10 move by black is maybe a little bit questionable. The idea behind this Panuki is that black really wants to get Sente out of it. Because white did get a large corner here. Playing so close to your strength is kind of questionable. If you were to play anything local here, it would probably be at D6, with the idea being that E5 is going to be Sente later. Because if white plays elsewhere, then you get to capture these stones, and it's going to be a nice result. And so if you were to play anything local, it would really be D6. But more often than not, what you'll see is black playing elsewhere, or Tanuking, because again, this group is already pretty strong. Playing so close is kind of questionable. You don't use your influence to get territory, you use your influence to attack. So I'm glad I looked at this variation ahead of time, because I assumed this was a misclick. And it seemed like Bobsyth had something prepared for you, Peter. I don't know if you felt it in the game or not. It seemed very much like a trick. So before I go over the variation, what do we think should happen here? What do we think black should do? Peter, Steve, Tara, Milan, anyone?
Yeah. Go ahead, Milan.
Yeah, I would totally do a 3-3 here.
Steve, were you thinking the same?
Yeah, I think the 3-3 is the first move, but you got to be extremely careful of this trick, because it is all about creating cutting points and forcing moves, and he's good at this. He's very good at this. So that is the strength of his game is these fighting moves, and getting people off balance. And so Black's quickly falls into what he wants.
Black and that's kind of what happened in the game. Peter also played the 3-3. So we'll quickly take a look at what ended up happening. And there were ways for black to still get a good result out of this. So I think what should have happened here is black plays here. If white tries, just play here. And you get a really nice wall, and white's getting second line territory. This is a terrible result for white.
Yeah, it's a trick to make your opponent greedy and go for the kill instead of going for
so if you go for the kill, white gets to play here, or maybe you do this one first, right? Which doesn't really matter. But and you do the same thing, push, something over here, something on the outside. This black area, it's only worth about 12 points. It feels larger than that, but that's it's actually pretty small, or 11 points. And it's kind of hard for black to really attack either of these two groups. So this ends up being a pretty close to even result, which shouldn't happen given this 2-2 move, right? So what black could have done at this point is to have played here. After black plays here and white plays here, though, black definitely should play here, because this is just a definitively good result for black. White's going to be pushed down super low, and black's going to get a super thick wall facing its territory. This is exactly how black wants to play. The other thing you can do, and this might be, maybe this might not be something you guys guess. Does anyone want to guess what else you can do besides the 3-3?
I'd say Q18.
Q18. So you could play Q18.
I have a stone on the left side, so if I get any kind of wall and white's on the second line, that's really good, I think.
So you could play Q18, but I think it's a little hard to, white's going to play lightly here and just play something like this. And you can't really cut, because you have this cutting point here. And you can't really cut on the outside, because then white gets a Panuki, and this is now a good result for white. So so if you just play here, white's still taking away your territory, right?
Yeah.
So any other thoughts besides Q18 or S16 kind of being symmetrical?
Tanuki.
Tanuki, right? Tanuki. It sounds so simple.
Yeah, I mean, what else?
But why is it good, right? Well, like, I mean, we can say Tanuki, but why is it good?
Because white cannot get much out of that stone, right? He cannot
Exactly.
expand fast enough.
White needs to
You get
add
sent
more
to a big
stone.
move.
You get sent to a
Right.
bigger move. If
Right.
white wants to do something here, white's going to play, maybe something like this to kind of get either side. Okay, well, if white plays at R17 first, white's not going to then play at S18, right? These moves don't make sense together. White could certainly also play a move like R15, but now black could choose to potentially cut, right? And make a little bit of territory. Like later on, black could choose this variation, right? I mean, maybe it doesn't work right now, but that's something that black can consider. And so if white plays something like this, black could just also give up the territory, right? Eventually, a move here is going to force white to have to come back and connect, but white didn't get very much. These stones are not being used efficiently. You don't want this stone at S18. Meanwhile, black gets a really nice wall and plays Osir, right? So this is kind of how black should be thinking about it. So if you're going to respond locally, you can respond with this. You just have to be mindful about the trick moves here with the clamp. Let your opponent try to capture and just take the outward influence.
I really like this 2-2 trick move. I think I will use it in handicap games.
But the problem is, if it doesn't work, you get a really bad result. The best trick moves are the ones that have some good variations attached to it.
Yeah, that's kind of my style, all or nothing,
I try to avoid the trick moves where I know I'm going to get a bad result. I'll play the trick moves where I can get something out of it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So this move at P15, it's separating two somewhat strong white groups, right? And black's really not getting territory. This is exactly what white wanted to happen. Basically just getting free moves on the side to get territory while black's just running out. So I would say L3 is a little bit questionable. Because black did spend the time to play P15 and O14, these three stones over here are pretty weak. So I would probably pincer at K17, with the thought being that you can use black strength here to kind of separate these two groups, these 4 stones here and these 5 or 6 stones here, and try to attack either these stones here or these stones here, and build up some territory on the upper left at the same time. That's how you want to use your influence, right? L3, it's not a bad move, but I think it's missing the focal point, but it's also kind of an awkward move because if white pincers on either side, black's not particularly happy with the result. This is a little bit too cramped for black. And similarly, if white were to play here and white plays here, it's not really making good use of the weakness that exists here. And so again, black is a little bit cramped. It's not really getting enough area here. So it's just trying to break up the framework. But even if black didn't break up the framework, you could still invade here and break up the framework anyway after white has gotten that extra move. So I think this L3 stone is a bit premature. Really focusing on the upper side of the board, I think is going to be much better for black.
Then how should I invade here?
Invade the lower side?
Yes.
Well, again, I would say play here first, but if you're going to play anything, O3 or 3-3, perfectly okay. Either one's totally okay. And if white decides to kick, right, and does the same rough variation, now you get to play at K3, which is a much better shape than if you had played L3, right?
Okay.
So more than likely, white will probably just play something like this, and you can just play Q3 and live. And this would be a nice way for you to break up the shape as well.
Okay.
I don't typically like seeing. I know that you didn't play this, Peter, but I don't typically like seeing a Q7 move after the kick. And the reason why is there's really a lot of Aji here. If white connects here, black gets cut down. If white cuts down here, there's quite a lot of aji that exists with this, depending on what happens with the ladder. So I think that even though this gets white a little bit more territory, the amount of aji that's left over is just not worth it. So that's why you'll typically just see Q6.
Is the corner still available even if he does the Q6 there?
It is still available, yeah.
I thought so, yeah. Okay.
You know, if white tries to separate the two groups, black's going to do something like this. Something like that would happen.
Yep.
It's going to be it's really not possible to kill this stone. If you want to play this way, you know, let's say black, you know, does something like this. You can kick here first, and that's a nice way to make this group a little bit over concentrated and solidify the territory. But you know, there are still weaknesses that you have to be mindful of. So this move, I think, is a little bit questionable as well. And when we look at it, you know, the idea behind it is we're trying to connect up L4, L3, and J4, right? So probably better just to do a more solid connection by playing at K3, or to do a diagonal connection with K4. The problem with playing at J5 is that white can immediately cut. And there's no real way for these stones to connect up. So it kind of defeats the purpose of why we're adding another move here. If we just wanted to play here and probe and, you know, play somewhere else, I could see that being a viable option as well. But adding another move here that doesn't actually connect the stones is really not what we want to be doing. We'd much rather play at K4 or just blocking at K3. You know, again, I think that white playing so far away from its strength, from its, you know, kind of weak group here is questionable. So if I were black, I would definitely cut at K17. You know, we have a strong position on the upper right for black. We have a couple stones on the left side as well, and white just has weak groups all around. This is exactly the type of situation that black wants to have happen. Attacking groups at G17, M17, and, you know, maybe later on can put some pressure on the stones as well. This is exactly the way that we want to play. Black gets territory here, keeps pressure on these weak white stones. It would be, you know, I think there was certainly a little bit of loss on the lower side for black, but this would certainly be becoming a more favorable game for black. Playing here just gives white that opportunity to protect up. Now, not only is white all connected at the top, but it's actually making, you know, 15, 20 points. And if you're afraid of white coming in and you know, invading here, white really doesn't have the time, because now white's going to lose these stones at the top. This move by white is way too aggressive, right? Because again, you have weak stones here, a weak stone here, and you're adding another weak stone. Black has no weak stones on the board. Every single group of black is really strong. So white is fighting too many battles right now. You know, if white wants to live here, it's going to get attacked here. And white hasn't made any territory. All it's done is reduce. But by reducing, it's given black this area here, and by virtue also letting black attack this group here, right? So when we're playing these moves, we have to be mindful of what are we getting and what are we taking away. And we might be getting a reduction here, but what we're losing is the strength of this upper side. And so for white, this is just too much. Probably, again, this move by black is a little bit questionable. Much better in this situation to separate the two groups with something like this. Maybe protect the corner base first and then separate the two stones. When you play here, what you're allowing white to do is potentially play the corner itself, but also get a free move to run out. This move by white is really doesn't make any sense to me. White really needs to try to cut here. If black cuts, then white can sacrifice the stone and try to and capture the corner, or at the very least get a really nice attack on the corner. This would be a great result for white. So white playing here, though, the problem with it is it immediately just gives black the entire side. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know, white doesn't have anything here. This is locally dead. It's locally dead shape. So this move by white really didn't make sense. Definitely need to try to Hana here. Obviously, there's some aji here. You know, maybe black chooses to fight by playing e14 instead of cutting. But I think that this is a reasonable fight for white to play. This move's okay. This move by black is probably a little bit odd because, again, black's position here is really strong. And now with all these extra white stones here, this white group at the top is not that weak either. This white group over here is not that weak. So you're separating groups that are pretty strong. And there's no reason to do that because if you can't get any sort of attack on them, you're not going to get any territory. So it feels almost like black is playing outside to run away, but black's alive in the corner, so that's not necessary. And again, white is strengthening its position here. It's getting a little bit stronger here on the right side as well, and black's only getting about 3 or 4 points in the center. Really not the way that black will want to be playing right now. Black would much rather be, trying to invade here. Right, this seems to make more sense to me. Try to capitalize on the weaknesses that do exist here. I want to be just a little mindful. Peter, was there anything I said today or anything in the later part of the game that we didn't cover that you wanted to look at more closely?
Okay, right here, at this side right here,
Yep.
It has only one territory, no?
For black or for white?
For black.
Yeah, so black's really only territory is on this lower side, on this left side here. Yeah, there's a little bit of territory here, a little bit of territory here, but yeah, black's, of black's 50 or 60 points, 45 of it, 50 of it are coming from here. Yeah, and now.
Don't I need to run away or have some kind of a territory here?
But I guess my question would be, what territory are you making in the center, right? We're not really making territory in the center. We're making an eye or two, right? We're making 2 or 3 points. We're not using this strength that we have on the left side or the strength that we have on the right side correctly. What we want to be doing is creating weaknesses in white shape so that we can attack it, right? This is how we get territory. If white jumps here, we're going to try to kill these 4 stones, or at the very least get more territory out of it, or take away territory. When looking at these exchanges, right, these moves by black, we're not taking white anything away from white. If anything, we're helping white expand, and we're only getting 2 or 3 points for ourselves, right?
Especially because black is alive in a corner. You really don't have to run.
Yeah, you're adding more moves to a group that is very strong.
Okay.
Okay. And again, you can see K4 coming back to haunt you, right? By playing at J5, it leaves open this weakness at K4. And now these 2 black stones are in severe trouble.
Okay.
So I guess I'll end my review here, but looking at these moves by black, they're kind of questionable because black's only getting a few points, but again, we don't need, or really black's really only getting eye space here. But as we mentioned, we don't really need eye space. What we need is territory. And so, I would want to just capitalize on any weakness that I can right now. The main weakness that I see is this kind of G17 stone. And the other weakness I would see is at R3. I think these are probably going to be black's best bets of getting back in the game.